How's it going, guys? I'm the son of Jazzy and welcome back to another Ultimate Killer Guide. Today we are going to be covering everybody's favourite knife-throwing, winking pop star, the Trickster. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Trickster is a difficult killer to play. He has quite a high skill gap, and even with his best add-ons and perks, you might not do as well with the Trickster as you would do with any of the other killers, as he has some weaknesses that survivors can really benefit from. Now, fortunately, he is a very fun killer to play, however, and with this rundown I'm about to give you on his power, perks, add-ons and tips and tricks, you should be able to use Trickster to the best of his ability and have a ton of fun in the process. But guys, no messing about, let's get straight into it, firstly discussing his add-ons. Now, the Trickster fortunately has some great add-ons that both enhance his blades as well as his playstyle, so let's cover my absolute favourites on him. Now, the first add-on I'm going to mention is the Edge of Revival album, which causes blades to shatter on impact, dealing 0.5 damage to the laceration meter on survivors. This may not sound amazing, but honestly it can be an absolute game changer with him, as all you have to do is aim at the survivor's feet and you'll either hit them for the normal damage or shred them to pieces with the shattered blades. This add-on has helped me end chases so much quicker than normal and is definitely one of my favourites in his arsenal. Trick blades are also fantastic for getting extra hits around objects, and if you're on an enclosed map such as the game, again the amount of damage you can cause from this add-on really gives Trickster an unexpected edge, because the knives bounce off of walls. With the Trickster's iridescent add-ons, they are both quite good to be honest, but the best being his iridescent photo card. When a survivor is 1 or 2 blades away from maximum laceration, M1 them to insta-down them. This add-on once again can take survivors by surprise and can really end the chases early, as when done well they get no haste effect and they will just go insta-down on the floor. And the Death Throws compilation is quite handy and gives more meaning to the main event, as if I'm chasing a survivor and I only have a few blades left, activate main event, try to down the survivor, and even if I do or I don't, when I exit main event my knives will be fully replenished. It's not as strong as the other area add-on, but it definitely can be worth running from time to time. Both Bloody Boa and Trick Pouch increase the amount of blades you can carry, which is really handy, as sometimes it's always the case you'll just be 1 or 2 blades short of being able to result in a survivor getting downed or injured, so having a couple more in your arsenal is not a bad thing at all. Melodious Murder reduces the reload time at lockers, which is pretty much good as is, but then if you pair that with Iron Maiden, reloading at lockers is effortless and insanely quick. And to be honest, all of the other ones are pretty valid as well, but the ones that I've mentioned above are definitely the ones that I'd stick to get the most out of your Trickster arsenal. So now moving on to perks, same with every other guide, I'm going to give you 4 builds for 4 different levels and playstyles. So, for high MMR killers, use Hex Blood Favor, Hex Ruin, Hex Undying and Bamboozle. Now this build may not sound the best, but honestly this build can keep chases short as possible whilst also making sure gen progress is at a minimum. Shred survivors down with your blades, and then when Blood Favor activates, swap to your M1 and hunt the survivor down for the kill. Also Bamboozle vaults to help keep tiles as weak as possible so you can just mop up the competition and pressure gens so Ruin can do its thing. For new killers or killers who haven't got many teachables unlocked yet, run No Way Out, Sloppy Butcher, Bitter Murmur and Jolt. A good build with a little bit of everything you need to do well. Sloppy to help keep survivors injured and on their toes, Bitter Murmur so that you know where survivors are and who to pressure once a generator's been completed, Jolt for decent generator defense, and No Way Out is incredible for the endgame in securing that last minute kill. For an incredibly aggressive Hex build, run Hex Devour Hope, Hex Thrill of the Hunt, Hex Undying and Hex Haunted Grounds. Try to down survivors and get stacks of Devour as soon as possible. Then once you've got 3 stacks, insta down survivors with your M1 and let the panic set in. Then patrol your hexes and down survivors that pop haunted whilst also gaining more stacks. In this build, Devour is kind of the king and the rest of the perks are there all to protect Devour until it's at its full power. This build is also great against boons, as blessing hexes with this build on will take absolutely ages, like over a minute. So yeah, very good. And lastly, for a godly gen defense build, run Deadlock, Ruin, Undying and Jolt. Trickster can struggle with keeping up gen pressure, but not really with this build. Try and defend Ruin and Undying and watch survivors struggle to maintain gens. With the Trickster you should be M1ing down survivors as much as possible, the reason for that I'll kind of get into a little bit later. But with Jolt and Ruin, gen progress will screech to a halt, and Deadlock will also help make sure that you just can't get gen rushed at the beginning of the game. Alright, now that's perks and add-ons covered, it's time to get to his power. Now the Trickster's power is Showstopper. Press and hold the power button to wind up and enter the throw state. Then, either by clicking M1 or holding it down, throw knives that deal laceration damage to survivors. Once the survivor has been hit with 6 blades in a short amount of time, they will lose a health state. Now, on paper, this power sounds absolutely unstoppable, but it does have some drawbacks. Firstly, recoil with the blades can get very tricky, so it's going to take a lot of time with them to get to know how and when to throw them to get the absolute maximal potential from them. And the more blades you throw in quick succession, the slower your killer will become, which can make looping him incredibly easy. So you need to learn his power so that you can get the most benefits from it. Holding M1 with your blades will perform kind of like a flurry of non-stop blades, but gradually the recoil will get strong and the slowdown for Trickster will get intense. However, by just clicking M1, you will throw one blade at a time, which can be great for precision and making sure that you don't accidentally use up all of your blades to only hit like 5. My personal rule of thumb is that the further away a survivor is, the more accurate and less spammy you have to be with your knives. If they're in front of you, go for it, unleash your full flurry and try and get maximum lacerations with it. However, if you try and flurry a survivor that's far away, you will do nothing but waste your blades. Now for the special attack that's part of his ability is called Main Event. Now after hitting survivors, after a while your meter will fill and you will be able to activate Main Event. When you do so, you will instantly start throwing blades extremely quickly and have an unlimited supply until Main Event ends. If I'm being honest with you, Main Event sucks. More times than not, using Main Event will result in a survivor getting away, as since you're slower than normal, a simple TNL wall will crush Main Event. The only time I really use it is if I'm close to having no blades and a survivor is like 1 or 2 away from being downed or injured, or if one or multiple survivors are in a dead zone and you can just be able to easily flurry them down with it without them having much defense against it. But do not get carried away with Main Event, or it will cause you to lose survivors more than it'll get you to down them, I promise you. And that's pretty much every part of the Trickster's power explained. Now it's time to get to the tips and tricks so that you can learn how to put all of this into good practice and be the best Trickster you can be. Now starting, the first piece of advice I always give with the Trickster is to always try and injure survivors with your blades rather than your M1. After you M1 a survivor, you will have a 3-second attack cooldown and the survivor will get a speed burst. However, if you take a health state away with your blades, you will get no cooldown. So injure survivor with your blades and then put the blades away and have less space to travel to down them with the M1, which is also why I said that Jolt is a really good perk for him. Also, always try and have as many blades on you as possible. Running out of blades mid-chase is really bad for the Trickster, as without your power you're just a normal M1 killer but with a ridiculously slower walk speed. So try to reload as often as you can after downs, after hooks, and honestly even mid-chase, so that survivors are always aware that you have blades on you and have to adapt to that. Now with the Trickster, whatever add-ons you have to affect your blades will also affect your blades in Main Event. So if you're using add-ons such as the Edge of Revival album, the Trick Blades, or the Cut Through You single, these effects will be passed onto the blades in the Main Event, which makes it so much deadlier. For example, if you're running Cut Through You single and a survivor's going for an unhook, activate Main Event and shred through both of them without them really being able to do anything to defend themselves. Now with every killer you kind of want to try and get basement hooks for the extra pressure, but I would say getting a basement hook with Trickster can be absolutely crucial, as if you play your cards right you can always recycle who's on the hook. Just start throwing knives from the bottom of the stairs at the rescuer, and then once they're injured put your knives away and M1 down them. More times than not they will not be able to make it back up the stairs, which gives Trickster some insane pressure potential, as Trickster already has some pretty incredible hook pressure. Sometimes with Trickster's slower movement speed, mind gaming around loops can be far more beneficial than trying to be aggressive. For example, if I have a survivor that's camping one end of a long wall, constantly kind of move back and forward and try and hit them with one knife at a time. It can be tricky depending on who the survivor is and how they play, but I'd say you have a much higher chance of taking away a health state through slow chipping, rather than being aggressive, trying to M1 and then just getting pallet stunned and then running away. A bit of a tricky one to explain, but hopefully the visuals on the screen kind of help you understand what I mean. Don't be afraid to try and hit survivors through tight gaps, like gaps in the hay bales or through the windows of the shack. You'd be surprised what your knives can go through, and sometimes that extra knife can be really helpful, as it could either injure or down the survivor, or make it so the laceration meter doesn't start to decay as soon, which gives you extra time to catch up with them and make sure that they're still like as close to death as possible. Next up, focus your blades on one survivor. Sometimes when presented with multiple survivors at the same time, you kind of accidentally swap from one to the other without really knowing why. You just kind of do it in the heat of the moment, and this will do nothing for you in the long run. Secure one health state or one down before moving on, otherwise all you'll do is get everybody lacerations meter up, and then it'll all just decay and you'll have missed out on a wonderful little opportunity to do some damage. And last tip is to try and push survivors into dead zones with your knives. Good survivors will be able to go from one god tile to another, however depending on the way you attack that said tile with your knives or the survivor, you might actually be able to force them into dead zones for much easier pickings. So be smart how you attack a tile and the survivor so they can't just loop you from one tile to the other easily. And guys, that's pretty much all the tips and tricks I can share to help increase your Trickster skill level. The rest you'll kind of just pick up by playing him naturally. Now I just want to remind you that the Trickster is fairly weak killer for the most part, and to get good with him is going to take a lot of time, knowledge and patience. But if you get there, you would be surprised how many survivors underestimate a good Trickster who knows his ability. And now for the last part guys, it's for those survivors that want to know how to counter the Trickster and keep it so that you have a higher chance of running him longer and potentially winning the trial. So my first tip to the survivor is going to be to stick to loops that have high walls such as shack, jungle gyms and the TNL wall. If there is nothing for him to shoot through or over, he is going to have a real problem trying to keep up with you and hit you with his knives. Similarly, Trickster has a large lullaby radius, so you will always know when he's coming. A great way to weaken him is to try and keep as much distance as you can from him. The closer he is, the more deadly he is. So run early, try and juke loops to gain more distance, and it will become very tricky for the Trickster to keep up with you and to consistently down you. As I said, Trickster has some incredible hook pressure, so always make sure he isn't local when you're unhooking, as if you're already getting hit with knives when you're unhooking somebody, 9 times out of 10 you will go down and swap whoever's on the hook, so make sure he's either far away or very safe and be practical with your rescues. Next is to don't be greedy with pallets, but also don't throw them immediately. Wasting the Trickster's time is essential, so if you can loop him on a loop 2 or 3 times before throwing the pallet, it will be so much better for your gameplay. But if you greed it too much, he might adapt to it or get an unexpected swing on you, so you have to be careful. Also, if you have lacerations and you can, either stay still or walk. It will reduce the amount of time it takes for the laceration meter to decay, as well as decay it faster. So only run if you have to, as if you stay still, the meter will decay much sooner and much faster. And it's actually kind of surprising how many people didn't know this, myself included. I only found this out maybe about a month ago. But yeah, definitely this will help kind of get rid of your laceration meter as soon as possible. And finally, always try and be full health. Now, I know this might sound a little bit stupid to say or a little bit obvious, but being injured makes sure that you're only just an M1 away from down. Whereas if you're at full health, the Trickster then has to process and be careful with his blades and his choices and the way that he attacks, and that's what you can benefit from, and it will make his life so much trickier, if you'll pardon the pun. The amount of times I've come out of nowhere to 2 injured survivors on a gen and then just downed them both because I wasn't expecting it, it's absolutely crazy, so heal as often as you can. And guys, that's it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to try and release these killer guides far more often than I have been, so please don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date with the newest the guides that I'm going to be making, and also don't forget to check out the ones that are already existed. I think this is my 6th one. I've done Nemesis, Oni, Plague, Twins and the Demogorgon, so yeah, go give them a watch. Hopefully you'll enjoy them as well. But yeah, thank you all so much. I really hope this helps your Trickster gameplay, whether you're going into the trial as him or against him. Also let me know in the comments if there's any tips and tricks that I've forgotten, but thank you all again so much for watching. Take care, bye bye for now.